This article, Wanted Students for Admission to College, Brennan Barnard from Forbes. And Mark, I think what I'm going to do is do a very quick uh, overview of the article, and then we'll go point by point. This article starts by a quote, and Mark has told me to not overuse his name, but it's hard to because it's Rick Clark from Georgia Tech, who starts off at saying, quote, now more than ever, colleges need students. And it's all the reasons we know. The overall Common App's down 10%. There's only been a 1% increase in unique applications. That's students applying to more schools. First generation and minority students are down 9%. And because of the pandemic, the schools are looking at increased costs and decreased revenues. So schools are looking to enroll more and more students. And the biggest challenge for all schools is right now, quote, how to find you being the prospective college student. So I'm going to briefly give a summary. Basically, it says the pandemic has disrupted the three traditional ways that colleges used to find students, and that was name buys, in-person recruitment, and student-initiated contact. Mark will discuss those individually, or want me to?
Yeah, no. Let's talk about them individually because that this is really important. And so, yeah, it's really what I want to make sure that we really hang our hat on this section. So, if I was to say to people, what are the main ways that colleges recruit students? I'm not sure people would get these three. And these, it's important that, that we do understand these three, and then we can go into how they've been disrupted.
Okay. The first one is name buys, and I'll just say what it is.
Sure.
It's where testing services, when you took the SAT or ACT test, would collect your demographic data, and then they would sell them to schools so they can selectively contact specific scorers on that list. And I'll leave it to you to explain what that meant, Mark.
Yeah, and I'll make sure we put this in the show notes. We've done 2 in-depth discussions on this podcast of how this works. And I want to, for people who are really curious, I find people who really are curious. Why am I getting all this mail? How do they get my name? What does it mean? Why am I getting all these emails? Does that mean I'm getting in? Does that not mean I'm getting in? We've done deep dives on 2 occasions before that have been like 20-minute segments on that. And I think it's kind of important for people to understand that. Not going to touch on that here. But I will say one thing that colleges can't tell you. There's certain things that colleges just can't tell you. It's not that they're being disingenuous. It's not that they're being deceitful. They just can't say this. So one of the concerns that colleges have about the new test optional movement is there's really 2 huge purposes that schools use testing for. We focused almost all the time on how they use it to evaluate students, but it's really been the only way they have access to every single graduate or every single senior in high school who's college bound. Because in the past, every single person pretty much that was college bound, unless they went to an open enrollment school or a community college, pretty much was taking an ACT or an SAT. Now, because such a high percentage of students are applying test optional, colleges have lost their ability to target students and to build their funnel. So it's really a problem, because I cannot tell you, for the last, multiple decades now, colleges have relied on this. They've relied on this in a major way to do their recruitment. So here's what colleges can't really tell you. They miss the fact that they no longer can buy names and realize that they're reaching the entire college going population. Colleges, they have a love-hate relationship with search. Part of them doesn't like it because it's really expensive. Some colleges buy 500,000 names, Dave. But it's not just buying the names. You have to buy the names. Then you have to pay your marketing team a whole lot of money to design, your promos, however you're going to micro target. And all the students and parents know how expensive some of that 4-color glossy stuff is that you get in the mail. And then you have to pay postage. So between buying names, developing marketing pieces, and postage, it's a huge expense on your budget. But on the other hand, what they pretty much will all tell you is there's kind of no substitute for it. And they really are a little bit at a loss, because there really is no other way out there of reaching everybody. You think you can go to every high school and visit? You can't. You can't go to all 43,000 high schools. And if you did, now everybody would show up. You think everybody will find you on their own on the website? No. You think that you can have events locally in the area and fairs and you just don't reach everybody. So here's the reason why they can't tell you that. They're already having a really, really hard time convincing you that they're really test optional, right? They're like, are you really test optional? Don't you question something if the student doesn't submit scores? And they're saying, no, trust me. We're not going to hold that against you. So they can't turn around and say, man, we're really missing those scores. Someone's going to say, see, those scores are really important. I knew you weren't really test optional. So anyway, but the bottom line is that what this article is making the point that the three main ways that colleges recruit have really been disrupted with the pandemic. And one is they've lost their ability to buy names. I'll say this really quickly. I've got a friend. His name's Jonathan April. We've become good buddies, professional buddies. And he's over at College Greenlight. We've had College Greenlight on the podcast before. And College Greenlight is an offshoot of CapEx. Well, CapEx was recently bought out by EAB. And Jonathan and I had a conversation this week. And why did EAB buy CapEx out? Because immediately EAB, remember EAB runs they have multiple divisions, a huge company, 1,400 employees. But they have a big, they bought out, the Royal direct marketing firm, the ones that started the whole search process. They bought them. And so they realized we have a gap now in our ability to reach students because now everybody's taking the SAT and the ACT. And College Greenlight and CapEx have come up with a creative way of identifying students. So this is a huge loss for colleges. Anything else you want to say, Dave? Should we move on to the next one?
Well, I just wanted to say that there was a counterpoint that a person called Brian Zucker made. He's the president and founder of Human Capital Research Foundation. So his opinion, it was his, was that he wasn't crying a whole lot of crocodile tears that name buys were going by the wayside because he felt that it was, quote, a high volume way of building an inquiry funnel, but it was low touch and impersonal, and it didn't allow the colleges to truly understand the applicant. So he thought that it was spreading a very wide but shallow net that didn't give a lot of depth. So
there's truth to that. I mean, one of the challenges, and he brings it up in the article, is that it's very expensive, what I just brought up. And he doesn't think you get a good ROI on it because his point is, even when you buy a listed name, you still don't really know what their interest level is in you. However, there's a reason why over 1,800 colleges use search. And I know when I talk to, and I have a lot of conversations with admissions people about this. And when I went through Harvard's college counseling certification program, I did a couple sessions on this. And I was in there with people like the VP of enrollment at Stanford and other places like that. And after it, I talked to a lot of them. And multiple people said there's no substitute for it. So his position, I mean, search is something that they grumble about because it's so expensive. And quite honestly, the less selective your school is, the kind of harder it is. The more brand name recognition you have, the more people are impressed that they got, so-and-so's recruiting me. But his position is a minority position to that extreme. So anyway, but it's good that you brought it up.
Point number 2, boots on the ground. And what he means by that, he calls the college admissions people often road warriors, that they love to go out and visit schools, and that this has been totally cut down by the pandemic. But he also says, hey, that's not so bad because many times these boots on the ground focused on richer and wider schools. So why don't you talk about the boots on the ground effect of college admissions?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I did. I was our main, there's a term we use in admissions. I hate using these terms because every time I do it, I think, man, I can't use it for admissions vernacular. But I was the road runner. That's what I call the main person.
Yeah, you can use it, and I'll learn it, and then I'll get my free meal, man. So throw it out there.
You need some easy ones.
I need some easy ones.
But yeah, this is what you do. And when you're on the road, and what do? You do college fairs. Okay, you do events, you do receptions, and you do school visits. And it's high touch. And it's still a people business, and people are influenced by relationships. So it's very effective. It is expensive model because it's airfare, rent a car, meals, hotels. Those four things can add up, but I mean, the one thing is, you're not selling bubble gum here, right? You enroll a student at a school, they're usually paying significant, 25, 30 grand or whatever. So you get your return on your investment. But think about the pandemic. Virtually all fairs went virtual. There was no high school visits for the most part this year. No fairs really, like in-person fairs. None of the high touch stuff. So it was completely disrupted. And that's the second main form of recruitment.
And the third one was under the heading taking initiative, particularly the student taking the initiative in terms of visiting campuses and actually scheduling tours. So why don't you talk about that, how that's been disrupted through the pandemic?
Well, this one hasn't been as disrupted because there's still ways that students can take initiative, right? Taking initiative involves things like filling the inquiry form out on the website saying you want to request information. It's you sending an email to the school. It's you attending a virtual event. So this is the one that you still can do as a student. And there's even more opportunity this year because the other two, search as well as boots on the ground, in-person recruitment, have been, for the most part, displaced. Now, search is still there because a lot of people took the SAT and the ACT. It's just that before you pretty much knew you could buy lists of names and micro-target everybody. So this is the third one. And this is the one where students really can still, communicate to a school that there's interest and make a difference. But what he goes on to say, and I know this is probably your next point, Dave, right? What's filled the place?
Yeah. So what he transitions is what has filled the place of all these three things that they've lost. And he talks about the conduits. A conduit is a mechanism that allows students and colleges to meet in the middle. And he spends a significant amount of the article talking about a company called SCOIR, that's SCOIR, which is a cloud-based software network that is designed to connect colleges and students. So, Mark, he spent a lot of time on SCOIR. Why don't you describe what it is and how it's affected things?
He really did. And SCOIR's just taken off, come out of nowhere. I'm really proud of SCOIR. So I met the founder at a SACAC event, which is NACAC is our big national conference, and we have these regional ones. And he was with his whole team. And I found out they're from Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is where I lived from 97 to 09. So really proud of Westchester producing this company. And SCOIR is a huge competitor to Naviance. Naviance had 40% of all high schools. And SCOIR came in with a completely different model and just really made a dent into Naviance. So SCOIR does a number of things. It's a communication system between the college counselor and the students when it comes to updating them of visits, and also a form where recommendations can be communicated and students can go in and make changes in their portal to their college list, and the college counselor can have access to all that. So it's a communication tool. But SCOIR's done some really creative things. They've come up with a way of trying to sort of electronically help students identify schools through several things. They have a student dashboard component. Okay. They have a student profile section where a student goes in and they answer a bunch of questions about the kind of school they're looking for. They can complete a career profile. They've done some smart things by syncing up with other sort of ancillary companies in the college admissions world that help with the college process, like UVisit for college tours and UScience for understanding how your aptitudes and interests line up with certain majors. And once you complete all this information, it begins to say, oh, you're interested in international business and you say you want a school this size and you'd prefer to be in this kind of location. This is a school you may be interested in. So it's electronically doing some of the things that, or attempting to do the things that a counselor would do, at least that component of it, of matching students with schools. And they do some things that have been attractive to the colleges in that they're not charging almost 50 cents a name. It's actually been really, really controversial the way search works, Dave. Several times the College Board has been sued by people that said, you never disclosed to me when I took the ACT that you were selling my name and you infringed on my rights. And there have been multiple lawsuits. And so SCOIR has done some good things, like for example, if you're at a Title IX school, and you have more than 40% getting free and reduced lunch, they don't charge you for their system. And they've done other things on the access level that have really been appealing to colleges. So colleges are using these conduits like SCORE. Now, this whole article focuses on SCORE, but in reality, there's lots of other conduits out there. There's lots of others. Some of the other really big popular ones are Niche.
Yes.
Niche's whole financial model is you go in, fill out a bunch of information, and then colleges get to see what schools you're interested in. They pay Niche money to have access to that. Same for CapEx. That's their financial model. And there's others as well. So these methods are some of the ones that are springing up as a way of helping schools recruitment in this new technological age. But I can tell you, Dave, I've had conversations with schools before, with VP of enrollments and deans of admission, because I like a lot of these methods and I like them a lot. And I remember on multiple occasions, I was like, man, isn't it great? Like, don't you think it's awesome what like CapEx and SCORE and Niche people are doing? And, they've all kind of told me, yeah, they're all great, but they're not a substitute for search. So I still think, people underestimate. It's a long time before search is going to be dead.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a long time before people are going to want to give up going to the supermarket and just order those groceries online. But it's going to happen.
There you go. There you go. But I think it's important, so let's try to tie this whole thing together. What should the takeaways be for a student, knowing that recruitment has been disrupted because of the pandemic, and 2 or 3 of the main ways, search and in-person boots on the ground have been disrupted, and some aspects of student initiative have been disrupted? What should be a takeaway for the students listening or the parents of students?
Well, he addresses that in his his last heading is what applicants can do. And what applicants can do is really taking the initiative in learning about SCORE and reaching out to these conduits, these cloud-based initiatives, and then reaching out to the campuses themselves, doing their own research and doing the visits. And I actually think just the overall message of the article is that it is a buyer's market, and don't believe the hype that, college is the toughest thing in the world to get into. That's for 98% of colleges. It's never been a better time for the student, the consumer, because there's never been as broad a choices of colleges for him to choose. But it's up to the student to find that out.
Yeah, and that's true. And we've said that almost every week now. We've made that point. I want to really emphasize the student initiative point. So student initiative has never counted more than it does now. And you have that opportunity. Now, I'm probably going to do my next bonus content. If not that, it'll be the one after. I'm trying to decide between 170 and 175. I want to really kind of do a deep dive on the admissions funnel. I've never done a deep dive on the admissions funnel. What does the admissions funnel look like, and how does it work? I think people will find that interesting. And I'll get more into it then. But when you show initiative, that's one way that you get a little asterisk beside you. That's how you take the funnel to the next level. I'll just leave it at that now. And because I'm going to do a deeper dive on the funnel, I'll probably get a lot more, I will get a lot more into all the things that are unlocked when you take the initiative and how it sort of accelerates the whole admissions funnel. But that's what I want people to realize. When any student I'm working with, Dave, I tell them, please, I know you're getting mail, and you're getting mail like crazy. Go on and request information. It puts you on a different mailing list. Yeah, you're getting mail now because they bought your name, but they don't know that you're interested. And actually, what happens with search, a lot of times people get creative with search. So they're targeting you, they're sending you all this mail, right? And they have triggers in there to test your interest. So sometimes they have like these perforated cards that you can detach and send back in, or they'll say, go online and, here's a URL and indicate if you want to sign up for this event, we're going to be, and they do things to try to use search to trigger initiative, and they're tracking who takes initiative and who doesn't. And they need to track it because otherwise you're just wasting your marketing dollars on someone that couldn't care less about what you're selling. Yep. So it's a way of utilizing and determining whether or not where their dollars should be spent. I shared this with a family I was talking with earlier this week, and I said, I'm not going to mention the school, but director of admission from a well-known school in the Midwest was saying, in a session I attended, he was saying, you want to know why we track, one of the reasons why we track all the student activity? We don't have enough resources to do everything, but if we're going to have a phone-a-thon and call everybody, we're going to call the people that have taken initiative. We don't have the manpower to call everybody in our applicant pool. If we're going to send our catalog out, like we still do have some of those printed catalogs, then the back in the day, that was everything, right? The printed catalog. Now it's gone on, course catalog I'm talking about with all the course descriptions. Now it's gone online. But some schools still print out some because it can be impressive to get it. But we can't afford to mail that thing to everybody. Who are we going to send it to? The person who's been engaged. So people want to know, what are some of the little things you can do? Take initiative. Listen, I'm not trying to say it's going to take a student that's a 2.3 student and get them into a school that typically takes 3.3 kids. I think students underestimate the positive impact it has on their file for a lot of schools, not all schools, when they show initiative. And that's what I'd like people to take away.
And I look at it, the analogy like a kid in the candy store. Taking initiative is the difference of going into your local 7-Eleven and finding 3 or 4 chocolate bars to buy, and maybe you only have 50 cents. Maybe you can't afford the Toblerone, which is like $3, but you only have $1, so you can get, maybe a Baby Ruth or whatever. But if you take the initiative and just go down the block to the major candy store, then for $1, you're going to find 20 chocolate bars that you can buy. You still may not be able to afford the Toblerone, but you're going to find an awful lot of sweet stuff that's going to be just as satisfying.
Yeah, you've been bringing the heat lately with your illustrations. I love your one about the 2 people and the bear in the woods. That was a really good one a couple of weeks ago. I incorporate that into my presentations. By the way, I didn't mean to be so negative. I don't mean to come off negative about SCORE when I said that there's so many other competitors and conduits, because I use SCORE. We use SCORE at in our Kipton College system, and we love it. We love SCORE. I think it's fantastic, and they're doing some really cutting edge creative things. And so I didn't mean to be negative on that. It's just this article focused almost exclusively on SCORE, and there are many, many other competitors to SCORE. It's just part of the technology age that we're in.
That's right. We didn't check and see if Mr. Bernard had invested into any SCORE stock. So.
well, it's funny because I know Brennan. We worked together since 2004. Brennan has always been very anti-search. We've had he and Rick have disagreed on that. And I've tended to agree more with Rick on that. And I know why. He doesn't want kids getting just completely bombarded and blitzed with all this stuff, and it can sometimes be misleading. You think you're getting in a place, people will say, man, this school wants me. They're recruiting me hard. And so he's trying to, keep that. He's trying to keep people from having your emails taken over by these colleges and your mailbox taken over. And it's a lot of noise, to him. But that's because he's like a Julia Esquivel. He's a superstar college counselor that can guide his 40 students or whatever through the process. For most people, they might uncover a college that they never heard of through that. So I'm not surprised he kind of didn't miss a shot at student search, because I know he's never been a fan. And he's always been an access guy too, Brennan, which I highly respect. He really cares that there's equality in the college admissions process and it's fairly equal. And SCORE is really doing some good things to look out for, for under-resourced kids. So hands up, shout out to SCORE from Westchester, PA.
Awesome.
PA.
Awesome.
PA.